The image is instantly recognizable, even to those unfamiliar with its deeper esoteric meanings. A young figure, eyes gazing skyward, stands precariously at the edge of a cliff. A small white dog yaps at their heels. A modest satchel hangs from a stick over their shoulder, containing all their worldly possessions. This is the Fool, the zeroth card of the major arcana in the tarot, a symbol that simultaneously evokes laughter, concern, and a profound sense of potential. Is this a warning against recklessness, or an invitation to an adventure only the unburdened can undertake? At first glance, the Fool appears naive, perhaps even foolish in the conventional sense. They seem oblivious to the chasm below, stepping forth with a trust that borders on delusion. Yet it is precisely this apparent lack of worldly wisdom, this radical openness to the unknown, that grants the Fool their unique power. They represent the beginning of a journey, a leap of faith into the void, unburdened by past expectations or future anxieties. This archetype, far from being a simple caricature of naivety, embodies a complex interplay of psychological states and spiritual principles, challenging our ingrained notions of wisdom, security, and progress. This essay will explore the psychology of the Fool as a profound archetype present in human consciousness and spiritual traditions across millennia. We will examine how this archetype manifests psychologically as a developmental stage, a cognitive pattern, and a catalyst for personal growth, while simultaneously serving as a spiritual symbol of surrender, beginner's mind, and the courageous leap of faith into the unknown. Our aim is to integrate these diverse perspectives, revealing the transformative power and hidden wisdom often disguised within apparent folly. From a psychological lens, we will delve into the rich tapestry of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, understanding the Fool as a primal archetype that initiates the journey of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated self. We will explore how cognitive biases influence our perception of foolishness, often leading us to dismiss unconventional paths that hold significant potential. Developmental psychology offers insights into the crucial role of innocence, curiosity, and risk-taking in early life, echoing the Fool's journey. Furthermore, we will touch upon the neuroscience that underpins openness to experience, the ability to tolerate uncertainty, and the neural pathways involved in spontaneous decision-making. We will consider the enduring presence of the trickster, the jester, and the tu in psychological narratives, each reflecting facets of the Fool's complex persona. From a spiritual perspective, we will draw from a rich array of traditions that paradoxically elevate states resembling folly to positions of profound wisdom. Buddhism, for instance, champions Shoshin or beginner's mind, advocating for an open, eager approach devoid of preconceptions, a state perfectly embodied by the Fool. Christian mysticism speaks of divine folly, where worldly wisdom is transcended by a humble, childlike faith, exemplified by figures known as fools for Christ. Sufism presents the dervish or divine madman, whose unconventional behavior often masks deep spiritual insight and a radical surrender to the divine. Hinduism has the Avadhuta, a renunciate who appears mad or indifferent to societal norms, but operates from a place of profound non-duality. Existential philosophy grapples with the absurd nature of existence and the necessary leap of faith into meaning-making. Indigenous wisdom traditions often feature the trickster as a sacred teacher, whose disruptive antics ultimately lead to deeper understanding and balance. We will explore how these traditions reinterpret conventional, quote, stas as a potent path to liberation, humility, authentic presence, and a profound connection to the sacred. By weaving together these psychological and spiritual threads, this essay seeks to demystify the archetype of the fool, recognizing its presence not just in grand mythical narratives, but in the subtle choices and significant thresholds of our daily lives. We will uncover how embracing certain aspects of quote 5, such as trusting intuition over rigid logic, taking unconventional paths, shedding the armor of learned arrogance, or daring to start anew, can be absolutely essential for both psychological healing and spiritual awakening. This integrative approach offers a richer, more nuanced understanding of human potential that often lies beyond the confines of conventional wisdom and societal expectation. Our journey into the psychology of the fool will unfold in several stages. We will begin by establishing a comprehensive psychological and spiritual framework for understanding this archetype, exploring its historical roots and cross-cultural manifestations. Subsequently, we will examine how the fool's energy manifests in modern life, considering contemporary challenges and opportunities for embracing its wisdom. We will then bring theory to life through a series of illustrative examples drawn from historical spiritual figures, psychological case studies, mythological narratives, and contemporary experiences. Finally, we will explore practical pathways, both therapeutic and contemplative, to integrate the wisdom of the fool into our lives, encouraging a more courageous, open, and authentic approach to life's inherent uncertainties and the boundless possibilities that lie just beyond the known. Having established the profound symbolic resonance of the fool and outlined our integrative approach, we now turn our focus to the intricate psychological landscape this archetype navigates. Our endeavor in this chapter is to dissect the psychological mechanisms through which the fool operates, understanding it not merely as a static image, but as a dynamic force within the human psyche. We shall explore its manifestation as a Jungian archetype, a distinct cognitive and emotional pattern, a potent catalyst for personal growth, and finally, its complex interplay with the trickster persona. At the heart of our psychological inquiry lies the concept of the fool as a Jungian archetype. Carl Jung posited that archetypes are universal, primordial images and patterns that derive from the collective unconscious, shaping human experience and behavior across cultures. They are not inherited ideas, but rather inherited predispositions to respond to the world in certain ways. Within this framework, the fool stands as a unique and foundational archetype, often considered the, quote, six, or the beginning of the archetypal journey, a journey towards what Jung termed individuation. Individuation is the psychological process through which an individual develops a more integrated and coherent sense of self, differentiating from the collective unconscious and integrating personal unconscious elements. It is a journey towards psychological wholeness, a realization of one's unique potential. How then does the fool initiate this profound process? The fool, poised at the precipice, represents the initial, often unconscious, impulse to step beyond the known, to detach from the collective norms and expectations that have hitherto defined the ego. It embodies the radical openness required to embark on a path where the destination is unknown, where established structures must be questioned, and where the nascent authentic self begins to assert its presence. This initial leap, though seemingly reckless, is an act of profound psychological courage, an intuitive trust in the unfolding process of life itself, unburdened by the ego's need for control or certainty. Is it not, then, the ultimate act of self-trust, to surrender to the unknown in pursuit of a deeper truth? Beyond its archetypal significance, the Fool also manifests as a discernible cognitive and emotional pattern. We speak here of a beginner's mind, or shoshin in Zen Buddhism, a state characterized by openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even at an advanced level. Psychologically, this translates into an extraordinary capacity for unlearning, the ability to shed accumulated biases, assumptions, and conditioned responses that often hinder fresh perspectives. The Fool's skyward gaze, seemingly oblivious to the immediate danger of the cliff, can be interpreted as a cognitive posture of radical presence, unburdened by past failures or future anxieties. It suggests a mind unencumbered by the weight of expectations, capable of observing and interacting with the world with unadulterated curiosity and wonder. This psychological freedom from judgment and self-consciousness allows for genuine exploration, fostering an environment where novel ideas can emerge and unconventional solutions can be considered. Do we not often find ourselves trapped by our own expertise, our knowledge becoming a cage rather than a key? The Fool reminds us of the liberating power of not knowing. This distinct cognitive and emotional state makes the Fool a formidable catalyst for growth and transformation. True growth rarely occurs within the confines of comfort and predictability. It demands exposure to the unknown, a willingness to confront disequilibrium. The inherent dynamism of the Fool, its readiness to take the puis quost a8, is precisely what propels individuals out of stagnation. The discomfort of the unknown, the fear of the chasm below, is not to be avoided but embraced as a prerequisite for expansion. The Fool teaches us that embracing aspects of Kin quote 9, trusting intuition over conventional logic, taking unconventional paths, or daring to start anew, is not a sign of weakness, but a profound act of empowerment. It is the courage to fail, to deviate from the established path, to experiment without guarantees, that ultimately leads to breakthroughs and personal evolution. How often do we postpone our own growth by clinging to what is safe and familiar, mistaking security for progress? Central to the Fool's psychological profile is the interplay of innocence, curiosity, and risk-taking. The innocence embodied by the Fool is not ignorance, but rather an unspoiled perspective, a purity of intention untainted by cynicism or jadedness. It is a fundamental trust in life itself, a belief in the inherent goodness or potential of the journey, even when the path is obscured. The small white dog accompanying the Fool can be seen as a symbol of this instinctual trust and loyal companionship, representing the uncorrupted aspects of the psyche that remain faithful to the journey. Curiosity, the driving force behind all exploration, is manifest in the Fool's open, skyward gaze, a seeking beyond the immediate, a desire to know what lies over the horizon, even if that horizon is a metaphysical one. This is not a superficial curiosity, but a deep existential yearning to engage with the mystery of existence. It is the primal urge to learn, to experience, to expand the boundaries of one's understanding, and finally, risk-taking, the very essence of the fool's iconic image. The cliff's edge symbolizes the threshold of the unknown, the point of no return. The act of stepping off, or even contemplating it, represents the psychological acceptance of uncertainty, the willingness to face potential loss, ridicule, or failure for the sake of experience. The modest satchel containing only essentials symbolizes a detachment from material burdens and a readiness to relinquish what is not truly necessary for the journey ahead. It is a powerful metaphor for the psychological freedom that comes from releasing attachments and embracing vulnerability. Without this willingness to risk, to step into the void, can true transformation ever occur? The psychological richness of the fool is further amplified by its integral connection to the trickster persona. Jung identified the trickster as one of the oldest and most universal archetypes, a primal figure of chaos, disruption, and paradoxical wisdom. The trickster challenges norms, exposes hypocrisy, and often brings about change through seemingly absurd or destructive actions. It operates in the liminal spaces between order and chaos, conscious and unconscious, sacred and profane. Within the context of the fool, the trickster embodies the aspect that dares to break rules, to question authority, and to introduce an element of unpredictable spontaneity. The trickster's role in psychological development is crucial. It serves to break down rigid ego structures, introduce new perspectives, and facilitate necessary shifts by disrupting established patterns. The year still, quote, 10, often associated with spiritual traditions, finds its psychological counterpart here, where the trickster's seemingly irrational behavior ultimately leads to profound insights or necessary societal and personal transformations. It is through the trickster's chaotic yet creative energy that we are often forced to confront our own illusions, biases, and the limitations of our conventional thinking. This aspect of the fool reminds us that wisdom can emerge from the most unexpected places, often veiled in absurdity or paradox. Does not the jester, in their apparent foolishness, often speak the deepest truths to the king? The trickster within the fool is the disruptive force that clears the ground for new growth, a paradox of creative destruction and renewal. Thus, we have begun to unravel the complex psychological tapestry of the fool, from its role as a primordial Jungian archetype initiating the profound journey of individuation, to its manifestation as a unique cognitive pattern characterized by radical openness and beginner's mind, and its function as a powerful catalyst for growth through the interplay of innocence, curiosity, and risk-taking, culminating in the disruptive yet insightful presence of the trickster. The fool emerges as far more than a simple symbol of naivete. It is a profound psychological blueprint for embracing the unknown, shedding limitations, and embarking on the path toward wholeness. In our subsequent exploration, we shall turn our attention to the equally rich spiritual dimensions of this archetype, seeking to understand how various traditions have, often paradoxically, elevated states resembling, quote, to positions of deep wisdom and liberation, further enriching our understanding of human potential, having meticulously explored the psychological bedrock upon which the fool archetype stands, its catalytic role in individuation, its embodiment of Shoshin or the beginner's mind, and its complex interplay with the trickster persona, we now pivot to an equally profound dimension, the spiritual landscape. If the fool's psychological disposition primes the individual for growth by challenging ego structures and embracing the unknown, its spiritual resonance offers a pathway to transcendence, a radical reorientation of perception that often appears as folly to the conventional gaze. Here, we delve into how various spiritual traditions across cultures have, in their own unique ways, articulated and embraced the very principles embodied by the fool, recognizing in apparent naivete a profound wisdom, and in the precipitous leap, an act of ultimate faith. The spiritual journey, much like the fool's journey, frequently commences with a deliberate detachment from established norms, a willingness to shed the accumulated wisdom of the world in favor of an intuitive, often unreasoned trust in a higher order or an inner calling. This is not merely a psychological shift, but a spiritual surrender, an act of radical openness to divine mystery that transcends rational comprehension. The fool, poised at the cliff's edge, embodies this primal spiritual stance, unburdened by worldly possessions, represented by the modest satchel, and gazing skyward, indicative of an orientation towards the transcendent rather than the terrestrial. What spiritual truths, then, are revealed when one dares to embrace such a posture, to walk a path that the world might deem utterly foolish? One of the most direct spiritual parallels to the fool's beginner's mind is found in the deeper spiritual implications of Buddhist Shoshin. While previously discussed as a psychological state of radical presence and receptivity, its spiritual dimension extends to the very core of Zen practice and the path to enlightenment. Shoshin encourages us to approach spiritual teachings and practices with an open, eager, and non-judgmental mind, just as a beginner would. This entails shedding preconceptions, dogmas, and the intellectual baggage that often obstructs direct experience of truth. The fool, with an apparent lack of worldly concern and an unburdened spirit, mirrors this ideal state. Is it not precisely this unencumbered state that allows for true insight, for the direct apprehension of reality unmediated by the distorting lenses of ego and conditioned thought? In Zen, this openness is not merely a learning posture, but a profound spiritual practice of non-attachment to outcomes, to identities, to even the concept of enlightenment itself, allowing the practitioner to flow with the present moment, much like the fool trusting the unfolding path before him, regardless of its apparent dangers. The spiritual wisdom of Shoshin lies in recognizing that true understanding emerges not from accumulation, but from a continuous process of emptying, of making oneself a vessel for the boundless and the new. Moving beyond the East, the concept of Christian divine folly offers a striking parallel to the fool's spiritual essence. The Apostle Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, 1:18-25, famously declares, quote, "Tis Christia." He further elaborates that, quote, this theological principle posits that divine wisdom often manifests in ways that confound human reason and worldly sophistication. The fool, in this context, becomes an archetype of one who embodies this foolishness for Christ's sake, willingly embracing humility, surrender, and a path that defies conventional logic, yet leads to profound spiritual truth and grace. Is the leap of faith not inherently an act that appears foolish to the strictly rational mind, an abandonment of certainty for an unseen promise? The fool's journey, then, can be seen as a spiritual pilgrimage where the abandonment of worldly wisdom and the embrace of a seemingly irrational trust in the divine become the very means of salvation and spiritual revelation. This divine folly challenges the ego's need for control and understanding, inviting a radical trust in a cosmic order that operates beyond human comprehension, much like the fool trusts the unseen path beneath the cliff. In the mystical traditions of Islam, particularly Sufism, we encounter these Sufi dervishes, whose practices often appear as madness or intoxication to the uninitiated, yet are profound expressions of spiritual devotion. The whirling dervishes, through their ecstatic dance and repetitive chants, seek to transcend the ego and achieve a fana, a state of annihilation of the self in divine love, leading to union with the beloved. Their movements, often seen as unconventional or even absurd by outsiders, are meticulously choreographed spiritual disciplines designed to shed worldly attachments and achieve a heightened state of consciousness. The fool's unburdened freedom and apparent obliviousness to danger resonate deeply with the dervish's surrender to the divine current, a willingness to appear foolish in the eyes of the world if it means drawing closer to ultimate truth. We might ask, is not the abandonment of self, the uninhibited expression of divine love, a profound form of spiritual folly that liberates the soul from the constraints of societal expectation and rational thought? The dervish's journey, much like the fool's, is a testament to the idea that true spiritual insight often lies beyond the confines of conventional reason, demanding an ecstatic leap of faith into the boundless ocean of divine love. Further east, the Hindu Avadutas provide another powerful illustration of the fool's spiritual archetype. An Avaduta is a type of mystic or saint who has transcended all worldly attachments and dualities, living in a state of profound non-duality and spiritual freedom. They often appear eccentric, unkempt, or even insane to ordinary people, disregarding social norms, conventions, and material possessions entirely. Yet, beneath this seemingly foolish exterior lies a deep realization of Brahman, the ultimate reality. Their detachment from societal expectations, their freedom from ego, and their embrace of an unconventional lifestyle are direct manifestations of their spiritual liberation. The fool, with his threadbare satchel and carefree demeanour, embodies this Avaduta-like detachment, signifying a profound spiritual freedom from the illusions of the material world. What can we learn from those who willingly shed the comforts and assurances of society, choosing instead a path of radical authenticity and spiritual independence, even if it means being perceived as a fool? The Avaduta, like the fool, reminds us that the higher spiritual wisdom often necessitates a departure from the well-trodden path, a willingness to appear mad in the pursuit of ultimate truth. Finally, we revisit the indigenous trickster, now viewed through a spiritual lens. While discussed psychologically as a disruptor of ego structures, the trickster in many indigenous traditions also serves a crucial spiritual function. Figures like Coyote, Raven, or Anansi often engage in acts that are simultaneously foolish, chaotic, and sacred, embodying a paradoxical wisdom that challenges established orders and reveals deeper truths about creation, existence, and the human condition. Through their boundary-breaking antics, they teach lessons about the interconnectedness of all things, the necessity of chaos for renewal, and the limitations of human understanding. The trickster's foolishness is not mere randomness. It is a sacred strategy to shake complacent perspectives and facilitate spiritual growth. The fool's journey, therefore, echoes the trickster's sacred disruptions, inviting us to embrace the unpredictable, to find wisdom in paradox, and to recognize the divine in unexpected places. Is it not through such foolish acts of daring and disruption that new spiritual pathways are forged and deeper understandings of the cosmos are revealed? The spiritual trickster, like the fool, guides us to a wisdom that lies beyond conventional morality and logic, a wisdom that embraces the whole spectrum of existence, including its most confounding aspects. In synthesizing these diverse spiritual traditions, Buddhist Shoshin, Christian divine folly, Sufi dervishes, Hindu avadutas, and indigenous tricksters, we discern a common thread: the profound spiritual wisdom embedded within the archetype of the fool. Across cultures and creeds, the willingness to appear foolish, to surrender to the unknown, to detach from worldly attachments, and to embrace a radical openness to divine mystery, is consistently presented as a pathway to higher truth, liberation, and enlightenment. The fool, standing at the precipice, is not merely a symbol of psychological readiness for growth, but a universal spiritual guide, encouraging us to trust the unseen, to shed the burdens of ego, and to take that courageous leap of faith into the boundless possibilities that lie beyond conventional understanding. We now turn our attention to the contemporary manifestations of the fool, exploring how this timeless archetype continues to resonate in the modern world, and how its principles can be practically integrated into our lives for profound personal and collective transformation. Having traversed the ancient pathways and spiritual landscapes where the fool's essence has long been revered as a conduit to higher truth, we now turn our gaze to the contemporary world. How does this primordial archetype, with its skyward gaze and precipitous stance, manifest in the intricate, often overwhelming labyrinth of modern existence? Is the courageous leap of faith still relevant in an era defined by data, algorithms, and the relentless pursuit of certainty? We contend that the fool, far from being an anachronism, is perhaps more vital now than ever, offering an indispensable compass in a world increasingly characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. A world often referred to by the acronym VUCA. The contemporary landscape, with its ceaseless flow of information and its myriad demands for specialization, often inadvertently stifles the very qualities that define the fool: radical openness, unburdened curiosity, and the courage to embrace the unknown. We are frequently encouraged to accumulate knowledge, to specialize, to predict, and to control. Yet, it is precisely in this environment that the archetype's disruptive potential becomes a powerful antidote to stagnation, groupthink, and the illusion of comprehensive understanding. In a society that values established protocols and proven methodologies, the fool emerges as an inherent disruptor. We observe its influence in the realms of innovation and entrepreneurship, where the most transformative breakthroughs often stem from ideas initially dismissed as impractical, naive, or even absurd. Consider the genesis of countless revolutionary technologies or business models. They frequently originate from individuals or small groups willing to disregard conventional wisdom, to challenge market norms, and to pursue a vision that, to the established order, appears unequivocally foolish. This is the fool's leap writ large in the economic and technological spheres. a willingness to step off the known cliff of existing paradigms into the chasm of what could be. This entrepreneurial spirit, imbued with fool-like audacity, necessitates a profound detachment from the fear of failure. The fool, unburdened by past successes or failures, approaches each moment with a fresh perspective, allowing for iterative experimentation and an adaptive mindset. We see this in the startup culture, where failing fast is often lauded as a virtue, a direct echo of the fool's willingness to risk everything for the experience, to learn not from prescience but from direct engagement with the unknown. Without this capacity for what might be perceived as folly, many of the conveniences and advancements that define our modern lives might never have materialized. The contemporary world is defined by its inherent instability. Global interconnectedness, rapid technological advancements, and ever-shifting geopolitical landscapes mean that certainty is a rare commodity. In such an environment, the conventional approaches of rigid planning and control often prove inadequate. Here, the fool's radical acceptance of uncertainty and its inherent trust in the unfolding journey offer a profound psychological advantage. We are confronted daily with situations that demand adaptability, resilience, and a capacity to operate effectively without a clear roadmap. The fool standing at the precipice embodies this very skill. Its willingness to step forward without knowing the destination or the means of arrival is not recklessness, but a profound trust in the process of life itself. Psychologically, this translates into a heightened ability to navigate ambiguity, to pivot when circumstances change, and to remain open to emergent opportunities rather than clinging rigidly to outdated plans. In an age where the only constant is change, cultivating a fool-like mindset, one of beginner's mind and radical presence, becomes a critical survival skill, fostering mental agility and emotional fortitude. The digital age, while connecting us globally, has also paradoxically fostered environments of cognitive rigidity. Echo chambers, confirmation biases, and the overwhelming deluge of information can lead to a false sense of comprehensive understanding, where individuals are less inclined to question their own beliefs or explore divergent perspectives. The fool, with its perennial shoshin or beginner's mind, offers a potent antidote to this intellectual complacency. To approach new information, new ideas, or even familiar concepts with the unburdened openness of the fool is to dismantle the preconceptions that hinder genuine learning and critical thought. We are challenged to shed the weight of what we think we know, to suspend judgment, and to allow for the possibility that our current understanding is incomplete or flawed. This mental posture is essential for navigating complex ethical dilemmas, fostering intergroup dialogue, and pushing the boundaries of knowledge in every field. It is the willingness to appear ignorant by asking fundamental questions, to admit, "I don't know," that often unlocks deeper insights and catalyzes genuine intellectual progress. Beyond the realms of personal growth and professional innovation, the fool's spirit permeates contemporary artistic expression and social activism. Artists, often perceived as outliers or eccentrics, frequently embody the fool's disregard for convention, its embrace of the unconventional, and its courage to express truth that challenge societal norms. From performance art that disrupts public spaces to avant-garde movements that redefine aesthetic boundaries, the artist as fool invites us to perceive the world anew, often through lenses that initially appear nonsensical or provocative, This artistic folly is not purposeless. It serves to expand our collective consciousness, to provoke reflection, and to reveal hidden dimensions of human experience. Similarly, social activists and whistleblowers often embody a profound fool-like quality. They are individuals who, with a fierce commitment to truth and justice, are willing to stand against powerful institutions, risking reputation, livelihood, and even personal safety. Their actions, often seen as quixotic or naive by those entrenched in the status quo, are nonetheless fueled by an unwavering inner conviction and a radical openness to the possibility of a better world. Like the fool on the cliff, they take a perilous leap, trusting that their commitment to a higher principle will ultimately lead to transformation, even if the immediate path is fraught with peril and ridicule. Their foolishness is often the very catalyst for significant societal shifts, challenging entrenched injustices and paving the way for progress. The trickster aspect of the fool continues to play a vital role in contemporary culture, particularly through humour, satire, and media commentary. The modern trickster, whether in the form of a comedian, a cartoonist, or a satirical news program, employs wit, irony, and seemingly absurd scenarios to expose hypocrisy, critique power structures, and deflate inflated egos. This form of foolishness is not merely entertainment. It is a powerful socio-political tool that allows for the safe expression of dissent, the challenging of taboos, and the fostering of critical thought. By presenting reality through a distorted or exaggerated lens, the trickster compels us to question our assumptions and to see the inherent absurdities in our own systems and beliefs. The laughter it provokes is often a release, but also an awakening, a recognition of deeper truths masked by conventional seriousness. As we continue our exploration, we will delve into specific illustrative examples from history and contemporary life, revealing how individuals across diverse fields have consciously or unconsciously embodied the principles of the fool. We will observe how visionaries, artists, scientists, and everyday individuals have made their own leaps, sometimes with apparent recklessness, yet often with profound transformative impact. These are the figures who, by daring to be different, by questioning the unquestionable, and by embracing the radical uncertainty of their chosen paths, have illuminated new possibilities for us all. Their stories will serve as powerful affirmations of the fool's enduring relevance, demonstrating that the path of perceived folly can indeed be the most direct route to wisdom, innovation, and genuine human flourishing. The profound message emanating from the fool's contemporary manifestations is clear. To navigate the complexities of our age, we must cultivate a capacity for what might appear as irrationality to the purely logical mind. We must learn to embrace the beginner's mind, to cultivate curiosity over certainty, and to take courageous leaps into the unknown, trusting in the unfolding journey rather than demanding a preordained destination. This is the wisdom of the fool, beckoning us from the precipice of our own comfort zones, inviting us to shed our burdens and step into the boundless potential of an unwritten future. The next phase of our inquiry will illuminate these pathways, offering practical insights into how we might consciously integrate the fool's wisdom into our daily lives, transforming perceived folly into a profound source of strength and liberation. Having explored the theoretical frameworks of the fool's psychological and spiritual dimensions, and its pressing relevance in our contemporary landscape, we now turn our gaze to the tangible. The abstract concepts of radical openness, courageous leaps, and the wisdom embedded in apparent folly are not mere philosophical constructs. They are living principles that have shaped history, ignited innovation, and continue to catalyze profound personal and collective transformation. In this chapter, we endeavour to ground our analytical journey through a rich tapestry of illustrative examples, drawing from both the annals of history and the vibrant pulse of contemporary life. These narratives, diverse in their contexts and characters, serve as powerful testaments to the enduring power of the Fool archetype, illuminating how its spirit manifests in individuals and movements that dared to step beyond the known. We begin with historical figures, individuals whose contributions, initially met with skepticism or outright derision, ultimately redefined paradigms and expanded human understanding. Consider the towering intellects of the scientific revolution. Nicholas Copernicus, with his heliocentric model, dared to challenge millennia of geocentric dogma, a proposition that, to the established wisdom of his time, must have seemed utterly foolish. His work demanded a radical cognitive shift, a willingness to unlearn deeply ingrained beliefs, echoing the fool's beginner's mind. Similarly, Galileo Galilei, in his staunch defence of Copernicanism and his pioneering use of the telescope, faced not only intellectual resistance, but also religious persecution. His unwavering commitment to empirical observation, even when it contradicted established theological and philosophical tenets, embodied a profound trust in an emergent truth, a leap of faith into the unknown that parallels the fool's precipitous stance. These figures, in their readiness to appear foolish in the eyes of their contemporaries, to embrace the discomfort of intellectual pioneering, were quintessential fools, clearing new paths through the wilderness of received knowledge. Beyond the scientific realm, history abounds with spiritual and philosophical mavericks who, through their unconventional lives and teachings, embodied the essence of divine folly. Socrates, for instance, famously declared his own ignorance, stating, "I know that I know nothing." This profound humility, a foundational tenet of Shoshin, or the beginner's mind, allowed him to relentlessly question Athenian society's assumptions, exposing the superficiality of much of its supposed wisdom. His persistent inquiry, often irritating and unsettling to those confident in their knowledge, led to his condemnation as a corrupter of youth, a fool who dared to disrupt the established order. Yet his legacy profoundly shaped Western philosophy, demonstrating that true wisdom often begins with the radical embrace of not knowing. In the spiritual traditions we previously explored, the Avadutas of Hinduism and the Sufi dervishes offer potent historical examples of individuals who consciously adopted a foolish demeanour to transcend worldly attachments. The Avaduta, often depicted as a wandering ascetic, deliberately flouted social conventions, their actions appearing bizarre or nonsensical to the uninitiated. This radical detachment from societal norms, material possessions, and even personal reputation was not an act of genuine madness, but a deliberate strategy for spiritual liberation, a complete surrender to the divine that required shedding the ego's need for validation. Similarly, the ecstatic dances and unconventional practices of the dervishes, seeking fana or self-annihilation in God, were often misunderstood as mere frenzy. Yet these acts of profound devotion, appearing irrational to the rational mind, were pathways to a deeper, non-dualistic wisdom, embodying the fool's unburdened freedom from conventional logic. These historical figures, whether scientists, philosophers, or mystics, illustrate a common thread: the courage to embrace perceived folly as a necessary precursor to revelation and evolution. Moving into the contemporary landscape, the spirit of the fool continues to manifest in myriad forms, driving innovation, challenging injustice, and inspiring personal transformation in our complex modern world. Perhaps one of the most visible arenas for the fool's influence today is in the realm of entrepreneurship and technological innovation. Consider the archetypal quote, 24. Founder, an individual or small group with a radical idea, often dismissed by established industries as impractical, unfeasible, or simply, quote, 25. These entrepreneurs, embodying the fool's willingness to leap off the cliff, invest their time, resources, and reputation into ventures with no guarantee of success. Their journey is characterized by uncertainty, repeated failures, and an unwavering belief in an unproven vision. They operate with a beginner's mind, unburdened by the legacy systems and conventional wisdom that often stifle established corporations. Elon Musk's early ventures into electric vehicles, Tesla, and private space travel, SpaceX, for instance, were widely ridiculed by industry veterans. Yet his audacious, seemingly foolish leaps of faith have fundamentally disrupted entire sectors, proving that radical openness to the unknown can unlock unprecedented possibilities. These modern disruptors are, in essence, our contemporary fools, pushing the boundaries of what is possible by daring to dream beyond the conventional. The fool's archetype also resonates powerfully within social activism and movements for change. Throughout history, those who first championed radical shifts in societal norms, whether for civil rights, environmental protection, or gender equality, were often initially dismissed as idealists, agitators, or naive, he is assessed to quote 27. Their calls for justice and equity frequently challenged deeply entrenched power structures and societal biases, appearing unrealistic or even dangerous to the status quo. Greta Thunberg, a young climate activist, was initially met with skepticism and criticism. Her passionate pleas for urgent action on climate change sometimes framed as youthful naivete. Yet, her unburdened courage, her willingness to speak truth to power without compromise, and her radical commitment to a cause beyond personal gain, galvanized a global movement, demonstrating how the fool's unadulterated conviction can ignite collective consciousness. Similarly, the early proponents of women's suffrage or the abolitionist movement made what seemed like, quote, 20 demands in their time, challenging the very fabric of society. Their steadfast refusal to accept the prevailing order, their willingness to face ridicule and persecution, ultimately paved the way for profound societal transformation. These activists, in their uncompromising pursuit of a more just world, embody the fool's courageous leap into an uncertain future, driven by an inner compass rather than external validation. Even in the nuances of everyday life, we encounter manifestations of the fool's wisdom. We observe it in individuals who make a, quote 29, career change in midlife to pursue a long-dormant passion, leaving the security of a well-trodden path for the exhilarating uncertainty of a new beginning. We see it in those who choose to travel the world with a single backpack, surrendering to the serendipity of the journey, unburdened by rigid itineraries or material possessions. These personal acts of courage, often perceived as reckless or impractical by others, are profound expressions of individuation, a conscious choice to embrace vulnerability and radical openness in pursuit of a more authentic existence. They are everyday fools, demonstrating that growth often lies just beyond the edge of our comfort zone, requiring us to shed old identities and leap into the unknown. Finally, the trickster persona, an integral facet of the fool's complex psychology, continues to exert its influence through humour and satire in contemporary culture. From late-night political comedy shows that dismantle hypocrisy with sharp wit, to internet memes that use absurdity to expose societal absurdities, the trickster operates as a sacred disruptor. By presenting uncomfortable truths through the guise of foolishness or exaggeration, the trickster bypasses our ego defences, allowing us to confront challenging realities with a degree of detachment and self-reflection. This form of playful subversion, often dismissed as mere entertainment, serves a vital function in a democratic society, fostering critical thought, challenging authority, and keeping the collective consciousness nimble and open to new perspectives. The trickster, in its modern guise, reminds us that laughter can be a profound catalyst for change, and that sometimes the most serious truths are best delivered with a touch of the absurd. In examining these diverse examples, a consistent pattern emerges. The individuals and movements that most profoundly embody. The fool's archetype are those who dared to defy convention, embrace uncertainty, and trust in an intuitive compass that pointed beyond the perceived safety of the known. Whether through scientific inquiry, spiritual devotion, entrepreneurial innovation, social activism, or personal growth, their quote 31 was not a deficit but a profound strength, a radical openness to potential that others overlooked. They understood, implicitly or explicitly, that true wisdom often lies beyond the confines of established reason, requiring a willingness to surrender, to unlearn, and to take that precarious step off the cliff into the boundless potential of the unknown. These are not merely stories, they are living blueprints for how we, too, might cultivate the transformative power of the fool within our own lives. Having illuminated these echoes of folly throughout history and in the present day, we are now prepared to explore the practical pathways for integrating the fool's wisdom into our daily existence, transforming abstract understanding into lived experience. Having traversed the theoretical landscapes of the fool, dissecting its psychological underpinnings, spiritual resonances, and contemporary relevance through illustrative examples, we now pivot from abstract understanding to concrete application. The profound insights gleaned from this archetype, however compelling in their intellectual grasp, remain inert without a conscious effort to integrate them into the fabric of daily existence. Our exploration thus far has illuminated the what and the why. This chapter will meticulously address the how. We shall delineate practical pathways for cultivating the fool's radical openness, courageous embrace of uncertainty, and liberating detachment, providing actionable strategies for individuals seeking to embody this transformative wisdom. This is not an invitation to reckless abandon, but a deliberate cultivation of a mindset that fosters resilience, innovation, and genuine self-discovery. The journey of integration begins with a fundamental shift in perspective, a conscious decision to adopt the beginner's mind that characterizes the fool. This shoshin, as we have previously discussed, is not merely a state of innocence, but an active, deliberate suspension of preconceived notions, expert biases, and the comforting but limiting frameworks of past experience. Practically, how does one cultivate this fertile ground of not knowing? We propose several avenues. Firstly, mindful observation becomes paramount. We are encouraged to approach familiar routines, environments, and interactions as if encountering them for the very first time. What details have we overlooked? What assumptions have we made about people or situations that, upon fresh examination, might prove unfounded? Engaging the senses fully without immediate judgment or categorization allows for a richer, more nuanced experience of the present moment, mirroring the fool's unburdened presence. Secondly, journaling without judgment offers a powerful tool for self-reflection and the dismantling of internalized narratives. Instead of documenting events, we can use journaling to explore our reactions, fears, and intuitive impulses without the pressure to analyze or rationalize them. This practice helps to identify the internal critics and societal expectations that often stifle our spontaneous fool-like urges. By simply observing these thoughts and feelings without attachment, we create space for new perspectives to emerge. Thirdly, we can consciously approach familiar tasks as if new, whether it is a professional project, a household chore, or a creative endeavor, challenging ourselves to innovate, to question established methods, or to seek alternative solutions, even when existing ones are adequate, invigorates our cognitive flexibility and fosters a playful, experimental attitude. This deliberate unlearning is a direct invocation of the fool's spirit, allowing us to see possibilities where before we saw only constraints. The benefits of cultivating this beginner's mind are manifold: enhanced creativity, improved problem-solving capabilities, and a significant reduction in the cognitive rigidity that often accompanies perceived expertise. Beyond cultivating a receptive mindset, integration demands an active engagement with uncertainty and a willingness to take risks, the very essence of the fool's precipitous leap. We acknowledge that fear is a natural, often formidable barrier to embracing the unknown. The human psyche is wired for predictability and safety, making the prospect of stepping into the void inherently unsettling. However, the fool teaches us that growth rarely occurs within the confines of the familiar. To practically embrace uncertainty, we advocate for taking small leaps. This strategy involves breaking down daunting, ambiguous goals into manageable, low-stakes experiments. Instead of a grand, irreversible career change, perhaps it begins with exploring a new skill, volunteering in a different field, or taking on a project outside one's comfort zone. Each small leap, regardless of its immediate outcome, builds a tolerance for ambiguity and a growing confidence in one's ability to navigate the unforeseen. Reframing potential failures as invaluable learning experiences rather than definitive setbacks is crucial here. The fool does not fear falling. It trusts the journey itself. Developing a robust tolerance for ambiguity further involves practices that strengthen our capacity to remain present and open amidst the unknown. Mindfulness meditation can significantly aid in this, training the mind to observe thoughts and feelings, including anxiety about the future, without becoming entangled in them. This creates an eternal spaciousness, where uncertainty can be held without overwhelming distress. We can also engage in forms of gradual exposure therapy, consciously placing ourselves in situations that are mildly uncomfortable or unfamiliar, slowly expanding our comfort zone. This might involve trying a new cuisine, visiting an unfamiliar neighborhood, or engaging in conversations with people from different backgrounds. Crucially, cognitive reframing plays a vital role. Consciously shifting our internal narrative from viewing uncertainty as a threat to perceiving it as an opportunity for discovery, innovation, and personal evolution. The fool does not ignore danger, but rather sees the potential for transformation inherent in confronting it. Furthermore, the development of intuition is central to navigating these uncertain waters. While the fool appears naive, its inner compass is often remarkably true. Learning to quiet the incessant chatter of the rational mind and listen to the subtle nudges of inner guidance, trusting one's gut feelings even when logic is incomplete, empowers us to make choices that align with our deepest selves, rather than solely relying on external validation or predictable outcomes. A cornerstone of the fool's freedom is its profound detachment from outcomes and societal expectations. In a world saturated with metrics of success, constant comparison, and the pressure to conform, cultivating this detachment is a revolutionary act. Practically, this involves mindfulness of desire. We are encouraged to observe our desires for specific outcomes, for external validation, or for the approval of others without judgment. By recognizing these desires as transient mental phenomena rather than absolute truths, we begin to loosen their grip. The focus shifts from the product to the process, from the destination to the journey. What is the inherent value in the effort itself, regardless of the end result? This perspective liberates us from the tyranny of expectation and allows for genuine engagement. Furthermore, we must actively challenge internalized narratives and the pervasive quote 35 that dictate so much of our behavior. Where do these rules come from? Are they truly our own? Or are they echoes of parental figures, cultural norms, or societal pressures? Questioning their validity and exploring alternative pathways, even if only in thought experiments, begins to dismantle the mental prisons we construct for ourselves. The fool, unburdened by these invisible chains, moves with a fluid authenticity. This process demands self-compassion, recognizing that detaching from deeply ingrained patterns is not easy. There will be moments of doubt, fear, and the temptation to retreat to the familiar. Treating ourselves with kindness and understanding during these periods of vulnerability is paramount to sustaining the journey. The fool's wisdom is not solely about serious introspection. It also encompasses the playful, disruptive energy of the trickster. Integrating this aspect involves embracing humor, irreverence, and unconventional approaches to life's challenges. How can we harness this energy? Firstly, by consciously using humor to challenge norms, both personally and socially. Laughter can be a powerful diffuser of tension, a potent tool for critical thought, and a means of gaining perspective on situations that might otherwise feel overwhelming. Personally, this might involve finding the absurdity in one's own perfectionistic tendencies. Socially, it can manifest as using satire or wit to critique power structures or ingrained biases. Secondly, we can cultivate creative problem-solving through unconventional approaches. Instead of defaulting to established methods, we are encouraged to brainstorm wildly, to consider impossible solutions, or to combine disparate ideas in novel ways. This echoes the fool's capacity to see beyond the obvious, to find pathways where none seem to exist. Embracing paradox and cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously without discomfort, further enhances this capacity, allowing us to navigate complex situations with a more nuanced and adaptive mindset. The fool, with its simultaneous wisdom and apparent naivete, embodies paradox, demonstrating that truth often resides beyond binary thinking. However, a crucial distinction must be made. The integration of the fool's wisdom is not an endorsement of blind impulsivity or genuine naivete. The archetype represents a conscious choice to embrace openness, not a lack of discernment. The fool is not mindless, but mindful in its approach to the unknown. Its apparent obliviousness to the cliff edge is not a failure to perceive reality, but a profound trust in an unseen path, guided by an inner knowing that transcends conventional logic. Therefore, practical integration demands a delicate balance between radical openness and a cultivated sense of discernment. We do not advocate for discarding critical thinking, but rather for integrating it with an expanded capacity for intuition and spiritual insight. The fool's journey, after all, is the beginning of the tarot sequence. It is the potential for wisdom, which will later be refined and structured by archetypes like the magician, conscious will and skill, the high priestess, intuitive wisdom, and the hermit, inner guidance. The fool's initial leap is an act of trust, but it is a trust that is ultimately grounded in a deeper, often subconscious intelligence. Therefore, as we practice embracing uncertainty, we must also hone our capacity for informed intuition, allowing our inner guidance to be enriched, not overshadowed, by experience and reflection. It is about making conscious choices to step into the unknown, rather than simply stumbling into it. It is about understanding the risks, yet choosing to proceed with faith and an open heart. The rewards for embarking on this path of embodied folly are profound. Individuals who integrate the fool's wisdom into their lives typically exhibit increased resilience. In the face of life's inevitable challenges, transforming adversity into opportunities for growth, their enhanced creativity and innovation enable them to navigate complex problems with novel solutions, fostering personal and professional breakthroughs. Most significantly, they cultivate a deeper sense of authenticity and self-discovery, shedding the constraints of external expectations to live a life more aligned with their true selves. This journey leads not to chaos, but to a more vibrant, engaged, and ultimately fulfilling existence, characterized by an expansive sense of possibility and a fearless embrace of life's grand adventure. The practical integration of the fool's archetype is, therefore, not merely a psychological exercise, but a profound spiritual undertaking, inviting us to dance at the edge of the unknown and discover the boundless wisdom that lies within. Having explored the practical pathways for integrating the fool's wisdom into our daily lives, we now turn our gaze towards the enduring nature of this transformative journey. The integration of the fool archetype, as we have seen, is not a singular event or a destination to be reached, but rather a dynamic, continuous unfolding, a path without end. Chapter 6 laid the groundwork for cultivating a beginner's mind, embracing uncertainty, fostering detachment and harnessing the trickster's energy. In this 7th chapter, we delve deeper into the sustained impact of these practices, examining the profound psychological and spiritual shifts that occur as we commit to living from the heart of the Fool. We will explore how this ongoing engagement reshapes our inner landscape, manifests in our outward existence, and ultimately guides us towards a state of radical freedom and authentic being. The journey of the Fool, by its very nature, is cyclical. Each leap of faith, each embrace of the unknown, inevitably leads us to a new precipice, a fresh threshold demanding renewed courage and openness. This continuous return to the edge is not a regression, but an ascension, a spiraling path that deepens our understanding and refines our capacity for trust. We find ourselves time and again standing where the Fool stands, at the precipice of possibility, the small white dog of instinct urging us forward, the modest satchel of our accumulated experiences light on our back, our gaze fixed on the boundless sky rather than the chasm below. This sustained engagement transforms our relationship with novelty and uncertainty from one of trepidation to one of eager anticipation. How do we maintain this radical openness amidst the inherent inertia of habit, the siren call of comfort, and the ego's persistent demand for control and predictability? The answer lies in the deepening resonance within our inner landscape, as we consistently practice the tenets of the Fool, cultivating Shoshin, reframing failure, detaching from outcomes, and engaging with playful disruption. Our psychological architecture undergoes a profound reorientation. The ego, once a rigid fortress built on past successes and perceived failures, begins to soften its defenses. It is not dissolved, for it serves a vital function in navigating the material world, but rather recontextualized. We observe its machinations with greater clarity, less identification. The internal monologue, once dominated by self-criticism and comparison, gradually yields to a more compassionate, curious inner voice. We begin to understand that true strength lies not in an impenetrable ego, but in the vulnerability and authenticity that emerge when we dare to shed its protective layers. This shift fosters a healthier relationship with our sense of self, one rooted in being rather than doing, in acceptance rather than perpetual striving. Furthermore, sustained integration of the Fool's wisdom significantly enhances our intuition and our capacity for trust. By consistently stepping into the unknown, by consciously releasing the need to control every variable, we create space for an inner knowing to emerge. This intuitive guidance, often dismissed as irrational or unscientific by a purely logical mind, becomes an increasingly reliable compass. It is the subtle nudge, the quiet certainty, the inexplicable pull that guides the Fool towards their next step, even when empirical evidence is scarce. This trust extends beyond our internal experience to a deeper faith in the benevolent intelligence of the universe. We begin to perceive life not as a series of random events to be managed, but as an intricate, unfolding dance in which we are active, if sometimes unknowing, participants. This profound trust liberates us from the anxiety of the future, allowing us to engage more fully with the present moment, much like the Fool, poised yet unburdened, existing fully in the now before the leap. Perhaps one of the most remarkable transformations brought about by sustained engagement with the Fool is the ability to embrace paradox. The Fool archetype itself is a living paradox, wise in its folly, strong in its vulnerability, free in its unburdened state. As we embody these principles, we develop the capacity to hold seemingly contradictory truths without cognitive dissonance. We learn that certainty can be found in uncertainty, that presence emerges from a willingness to surrender, and that profound insight can arise from a state of not knowing. This allows us to navigate the complexities of life with greater fluidity, recognizing that reality is rarely binary. The world, and indeed our inner experience, is a tapestry woven with threads of light and shadow, joy and sorrow, success and setback. The Fool teaches us to appreciate the richness of this intricate design, to find harmony in apparent discord, and to perceive the inherent wisdom in life's most confounding situations. This radical acceptance extends not only to external circumstances, but also to our own multifaceted nature, fostering a profound sense of inner peace and wholeness. And as these inner shifts take root, they inevitably begin to manifest outwardly, transforming our lived experience. Living the Fool's wisdom translates into a more authentic expression of our true selves. Unburdened by the relentless pursuit of external validation or the fear of judgment, we become more courageous in expressing our unique perspectives, pursuing our passions and aligning our actions with our deepest values. This authenticity is magnetic, drawing towards us experiences and relationships that resonate with our true nature. We shed the masks we once wore for protection or acceptance, revealing the genuine self that the Fool in its innocence never thought to hide. This sustained Quote 37 also becomes a wellspring of creative innovation. By continuously approaching problems and situations with fresh eyes, unencumbered by preconceived notions or past failures, we unlock novel solutions and pathways. This is the spirit of the entrepreneur who, quote 38, the artist who dares to break convention, the scientist who questions established paradigms. The Fool's mindset fosters a playful experimentation, a willingness to iterate and adapt, understanding that every perceived setback is merely data, a stepping stone on the path of discovery. In a world increasingly demanding adaptability and ingenuity, the capacity to embody the Fool's creative spirit becomes an invaluable asset, not just for individual success but for collective progress. Consequently, we develop a remarkable resilience and adaptability. Life, in its unpredictable grandeur, will inevitably present challenges, disruptions, and unexpected turns. For those who cling rigidly to control and predictability, these moments can be sources of immense suffering. But for those who have embraced the Fool's path, who have learned to surf the waves of uncertainty, these challenges are met with a different spirit. They are perceived not as insurmountable obstacles, but as invitations to adapt, to learn, to grow. The ability to pivot, to let go of what is no longer serving, and to embrace the emergent future with grace and flexibility becomes a hallmark of the integrated Fool. This is the art of navigating change not as a victim, but as a conscious participant, trusting in the inherent wisdom of life's unfolding. Finally, the reduction of egoic attachment and the cultivation of radical acceptance foster a profound, compassionate engagement with the world. When we are less consumed by our own perceived shortcomings, our desires and our fears, we open ourselves more fully to the experiences of others. We recognize our shared humanity, the common threads of joy and suffering that connect us all. The fool, in its innocent openness, sees the world without the filters of prejudice or judgment, extending an unconditional acceptance that inspires empathy and connection. This compassionate outlook fuels a desire to contribute positively to the collective, to alleviate suffering, and to foster environments where others too can find the courage to embark on their own transformative journeys. Moving beyond individual transformation, the fool also emerges as a powerful collective catalyst, guiding humanity's next leap. In an era marked by complex global challenges, climate change, social inequalities, technological disruption, the collective consciousness often finds itself trapped in rigid patterns of thinking, entrenched systems, and dogmatic beliefs. Here, the spirit of the fool becomes indispensable. It challenges us, as a society, to question our collective shoulds, to dismantle outdated paradigms, and to imagine radical new possibilities. The trickster aspect of the fool, with its humour and satire, provides a crucial means of critiquing power structures and exposing the absurdities of conventional wisdom, gently, or sometimes not so gently, nudging us towards necessary societal shifts. Consider the urgent need for new solutions to environmental crises. Traditional approaches often falter due to ingrained economic models or political inertia. The fool spirit encourages us to embrace a collective, fortitude, to look at these problems anew, to consider unconventional technologies, indigenous wisdom, or radical social reorganizations that might initially appear, fortuitiam, but hold the seeds of profound transformation. Similarly, in addressing social justice issues, the fool inspires us to challenge the status quo, to empathize with marginalized voices, and to envision a more equitable world, even if the path to get there is uncertain and requires leaps of faith. The willingness to experiment, to das ist, fortitude, on a societal scale, and to adapt collectively, guided by a spirit of open inquiry and compassionate innovation, is precisely what is needed to navigate the complexities of the 21st century. Ultimately, this sustained journey with the fool leads to a state of profound freedom, the joy of unburdened being. It is a liberation from the tyranny of fear, from the relentless pursuit of external validation, and from the illusion of control. In this state, fear is replaced by trust, striving by being, and attachment by a deep abiding acceptance. We discover that true security lies not in accumulating possessions or accolades, but in our capacity to embrace the present moment, whatever it may hold, with an open heart and a curious mind. The fool, standing at the edge of the cliff, is not falling. It is soaring, or perhaps simply being. Its freedom is not a consequence of having overcome all obstacles, but of having transcended the very notion of obstacles. This is the profound wisdom found in embracing apparent folly, the realization that our greatest strength lies in our vulnerability, our deepest knowledge in our willingness to not know, and our ultimate freedom in our capacity to surrender. The fool's journey invites us to live life as a grand adventure, an ongoing exploration of consciousness, trust, and boundless potential. It is a path that continually asks us to shed what no longer serves, to embrace the unknown with courage and curiosity, and to find the sacred in every step of the way. The integration of the fool is not merely a psychological exercise, it is a spiritual homecoming, a return to our essential nature as beings of infinite possibility. As we continue on this path, we discover that the true wisdom of the fool lies not in avoiding the fall, but in finding the joy and liberation in the act of leaping itself. Our exploration thus far has illuminated the fool not merely as an initial impulse, but as an enduring principle guiding a cyclical journey of self-discovery and societal transformation. We have observed how this archetype initiates individuation, fosters a beginner's mind, and catalyzes profound shifts in both personal and collective consciousness. Yet the question remains, what does it truly mean to live this wisdom, not as a fleeting moment of courage, but as a sustained and evolving philosophy of existence? How does the initial leap translate into a continuous path, and what are the deeper psychological processes that facilitate this enduring engagement with the unknown? The fool's journey, we contend, is not a singular event but an iterative process, a succession of thresholds encountered and courageously navigated. Each precipice, each chasm below, represents a new opportunity for radical openness, a fresh invitation to shed the accumulated layers of certainty and embrace the fertile ground of not knowing. The initial step off the cliff is but the first of many leaps, each one deepening our understanding of self and world, refining our capacity for trust, and expanding our internal landscape. This cyclical nature ensures that the wisdom gleaned is not static, but dynamic, continuously adapting to the evolving complexities of life. It is in this ongoing dance with uncertainty that the true resilience of the fool's spirit is forged, a resilience that thrives not on the absence of peril, but on the unwavering willingness to face it. Central to this sustained journey is the continuous softening of the ego, a process initiated by the fool's initial act of surrender. The ego, with its inherent need for control, predictability, and a stable self-narrative, naturally resists the unburdened freedom that the fool embodies. It clings to established identities, past successes, and perceived failures, constructing a fortress of certainty against the perceived chaos of the unknown. The fool, however, invites us to dismantle these fortifications, not through forceful demolition, but through gentle, persistent detachment. This psychological process involves a conscious release of the need for external validation, a loosening of the grip on outcomes, and a willingness to encounter the self without the protective armor of preconceived notions. As we repeatedly step into the void, we learn that our true strength does not reside in our ability to control circumstances, but in our capacity to adapt, to flow, and to find equilibrium amidst disequilibrium. This ongoing ego dissolution is not an annihilation of the self, but rather a reorientation, shifting our center of gravity from external achievements to internal authenticity, from the transient to the enduring. Furthermore, the radical openness championed by the fool extends beyond merely embracing external uncertainty. It necessitates a profound engagement with the unseen aspects of our own psyche. The small white dog accompanying the fool, often interpreted as intuition or instinct, can also symbolize the instinctual, often repressed, aspects of the self, our shadow. As we embark on the fool's journey, particularly as it becomes a sustained practice, we invariably encounter these hidden facets of our being. The willingness to step into the unknown of the outer world prepares us for the equally daunting task of stepping into the unknown of our inner world, confronting our fears, our vulnerabilities, and our unacknowledged desires. This process of shadow integration, a cornerstone of Jungian individuation, is not a comfortable one, for it often requires us to acknowledge parts of ourselves we have long disowned or projected onto others. Yet, it is precisely this courageous confrontation and subsequent integration that leads to genuine wholeness, transforming fragmented aspects of the self into a more robust and authentic sense of identity. The Fool, in its unburdened state, paradoxically becomes a guide through these internal landscapes, demonstrating that true freedom arises from accepting all parts of who we are, light and shadow alike. The enduring influence of the trickster archetype, deeply intertwined with the Fool, also plays a crucial role in sustaining this journey. While the trickster's initial disruptive energy serves to break free from convention, its ongoing presence provides the necessary levity, playfulness, and cognitive flexibility to navigate the continuous challenges of the path. Humor, paradox, and unconventional approaches become not just tools for initial liberation, but continuous mechanisms for maintaining mental agility and emotional resilience. In a world that often demands seriousness and rigid adherence to logic, the trickster's playful subversion reminds us that wisdom can often be found in the absurd, solutions in the unconventional, and strength in the ability to laugh at ourselves and our predicaments. This ongoing embrace of the trickster's spirit allows us to reframe perceived failures as opportunities for learning, to challenge our own cognitive biases, and to avoid the pitfalls of dogmatism, ensuring that our journey remains one of continuous discovery rather than fixed ideology. As individuals cultivate and integrate the Fool's wisdom, the implications extend beyond personal transformation, becoming a potent catalyst for collective consciousness. An individual embodying the Fool's radical openness and unburdened freedom naturally inspires others to question their own assumptions, to challenge societal norms, and to embrace their unique paths. This ripple effect manifests in various forms: innovators who dare to dream beyond current paradigms, activists who courageously stand for justice in the face of established power, and artists who express truths that conventional language cannot capture. The Fool's authenticity fosters genuine connection, breaking down the barriers of fear and judgment that often separate us. When we collectively embrace the vulnerability inherent in not knowing, we create space for profound empathy, understanding, and collaborative problem-solving. This shift from individualistic certainty to collective openness fosters a more compassionate and adaptable society, one better equipped to navigate the complex global challenges that demand creative, unconventional, and courageous responses. To sustain the beginner's mind and the Fool's spirit throughout life is therefore a lifelong practice, not a destination. It demands a conscious and continuous commitment to unlearning and relearning, to mindful observation, and to regular self-reflection. We must deliberately cultivate moments of silence and introspection, allowing us to detach from the relentless demands of the external world and reconnect with our inner intuitive compass. The satchel, once light and sparsely packed, may gather experiences and insights over time, but the spirit of lightness, of not being burdened by accumulation, must remain. This means continually questioning our own expertise, seeking out novel perspectives, and embracing discomfort as a signpost for growth. It is a commitment to seeing every moment as a fresh opportunity for discovery, every encounter as a potential teacher, and every challenge as an invitation to leap anew. Ultimately, the teleology of foolishness, the ultimate purpose of this enduring journey, is not about accumulating definitive answers or achieving a state of immutable certainty. Rather, it is about cultivating a profound capacity for wisdom, a wisdom characterized by adaptability, resilience, profound empathy, and an unshakable inner freedom. It's a wisdom that embraces paradox, finding strength in vulnerability, clarity in confusion, and potential in every precipice. The initial leap of faith, sustained and deepened over a lifetime, transforms the perceived folly into a powerful form of knowing, a knowing that transcends intellectual understanding, rooting itself in direct experience and an unwavering trust in the unfolding journey. The fool, then, becomes not merely an archetype, but a living philosophy, guiding us toward a boundless existence where the willingness to not know is the most profound form of wisdom, and the unburdened step into the unknown is the truest expression of self. The teleology of foolishness, as we have explored, culminates not in a static state of enlightenment, but in a profound and cultivated capacity for wisdom, an unshakable inner freedom that embraces not knowing as its deepest truth. This, we concluded, leads to a boundless existence, where the unburdened step into the unknown becomes the truest expression of the self. Yet, what does, quote 43, truly mean in the lived experience of the individuating consciousness? Does the journey simply end at the precipice, perpetually poised for a leap? Or does this radical openness lay the groundwork for something more, something that moves beyond? The initial act of surrender into active engagement with the world. We contend that the wisdom of the fool, far from being a singular event, is the primordial seed from which all subsequent development springs. It is the fertile void, the tabula rasa, upon which the narrative of the self is continuously written and rewritten. The fool's boundless potential, its radical openness to all possibilities, does not merely sustain a state of perpetual beginner's mind. It actively prepares the ground for the conscious application of will, the focused intention, and the deliberate shaping of reality that characterize the next stage of the archetypal journey. As the zeroth card, the fool precedes all others, yet its spirit permeates and informs every subsequent archetype in the major arcana. It is the unmanifest potential before manifestation, the pure energy before form. Following this initial unburdened step into the unknown, the journey invariably leads us to card 1, the magician. This transition is not one of abandonment, but of profound integration. The magician represents conscious will, the mastery of one's inner and outer resources, and the ability to manifest intention in the material world. Where the fool embodies surrender, the magician embodies action. Where the fool is receptive, the magician is directive. How then does the wisdom gleaned from embracing folly inform this crucial shift from potentiality to actuality, from innocence to agency? The fool's radical openness, its willingness to step off the cliff without a map or a rigid plan, is precisely what empowers the magician. Without this foundational trust in the unknown, without the dissolution of rigid expectations and the embrace of beginner's mind, the magician's will could easily devolve into hubris, its actions into mere control, and its creations into brittle constructs born of fear rather than genuine inspiration. The fool, in essence, provides the magician with a spirit of innovation, an adaptability that allows for course correction, and a humility that recognizes the limits of even the most potent will. It ensures that the magician's mastery is not an end in itself, but a dynamic process of engagement with an ever-unfolding reality. Consider the attributes of the magician, standing with one arm raised to the heavens, drawing down divine energy, and the other pointing to the earth, manifesting it into form. Before this conscious act of creation, there must be a willingness to receive, a readiness to be a conduit. This readiness is the fool's gift. The fool's non-attachment to specific outcomes, its embrace of the journey for its own sake, liberates the magician from the tyranny of external validation or the fear of failure. It allows for experimentation, for the bold stroke of creation that might appear, quote 4:4, to conventional wisdom, but which holds the seed of true innovation. The magician, informed by the fool, understands that true mastery is not about controlling every variable, but about skillfully navigating the inherent uncertainty of existence, much like the fool navigates the cliff's edge. Moreover, the fool's inherent curiosity and its unburdened perspective prevent the magician from becoming stagnant or dogmatic. A magician who loses touch with their inner fool might become trapped by their own knowledge, their own methods, or their past successes. They might mistake their current mastery for ultimate wisdom, thereby closing themselves off to new insights and emergent possibilities. The fool acts as a perpetual internal trickster, playfully disrupting rigid frameworks, reminding the magician that even the most well-honed skill can be refined, reimagined, or even entirely reinvented. This dialectic, the constant interplay between the innocent potential of the fool and the focused will of the magician, is essential for sustained growth and true creative power. The white dog, the fool's loyal companion, symbolizes the primal intuition that accompanies the initial leap. As the journey progresses and the fool transitions into the active role of the magician, this intuition does not vanish. Instead, it becomes an even more crucial guide. The magician, armed with conscious will and skill, must still discern how and when to act and what intentions to manifest. The white dog, representing the subconscious wisdom, the gut feeling, the instinctual knowing that transcends rational thought, becomes the magician's inner compass, ensuring that powerful actions are aligned with deeper truths and intrinsic values rather than merely ego-driven desires. It is the magician's ability to listen to this inner voice, cultivated during the fool's initial surrender, that distinguishes true creative genius from mere technical proficiency. Similarly, the fool's modest satchel, containing only what is essential, speaks to the core wisdom carried forward. It is not an empty vessel, but one that holds the distilled essence of detachment, adaptability, and the beginner's mind. As the magician begins to accumulate tools, knowledge, and experience, the fool's satchel serves as a constant reminder against intellectual or material hoarding. It teaches that true power lies not in the quantity of one's possessions or knowledge, but in the ability to wield them lightly, to adapt, and to let go when necessary. This allows the magician to remain fluid, unburdened by past successes or failures, always ready to embrace a new approach or discard an outdated one. Thus, the journey from the fool to the magician is not a progression from ignorance to knowledge, but a transformation from pure, unconditioned potential to conscious, purposeful action, always informed by the foundational principles of openness and trust. We learn that it is possible, indeed vital, to embody both the innocent beginner and the skilled master simultaneously. How do we cultivate this paradox in our own lives, maintaining beginner's mind even as we deepen our expertise? It requires a continuous mindful practice of unlearning, of questioning assumptions, and of approaching every new challenge with the same sense of wonder and radical acceptance that characterized the fool's initial step. In practical terms, this means that even as we develop mastery in our chosen fields, we must actively seek out opportunities to challenge our established perspectives. We can engage in cross-disciplinary learning, collaborate with those who hold different viewpoints, or simply take moments to reflect on how our own expertise might be limiting our vision. It is the conscious decision to step outside the comfort zone of what we know and to embrace the discomfort of what we don't know that keeps the spirit of the fool alive within us. This internal fool ensures that our actions as magicians are not rigid imitations of past successes, but dynamic responses to the present moment, infused with creativity and an authentic connection to our deepest intuitive guidance. The integration of the fool and the magician teaches us that true power lies in the harmonious interplay of surrender and will, of receptivity and action. It is the wisdom to know when to let go and when to take command, when to listen to the whispers of intuition, and when to manifest with unwavering focus. The fool's boundless existence, therefore, is not an end state of passive acceptance, but the enduring source of vitality that energizes and purifies all subsequent acts of creation and self-realization. It is the ever-present reminder that even as we build, shape, and manifest, we must remain radically open to the unexpected, forever standing at the precipice of new possibilities, ready to take the next unburdened step. The fool, then, is not merely the beginning of the journey, but its eternal wellspring, ensuring that our path through life remains one of continuous discovery, authentic expression, and profound, adaptive wisdom. Our exploration thus far has illuminated the profound, often overlooked, wisdom embedded within the archetype of the fool, a wisdom of radical openness, unburdened freedom, and a courageous leap into the unknown. We have contended that this boundless potential, this unconditioned state of being, lays the indispensable foundation for the emergence of Kfuvosichi, quote, 45th archetype, informing conscious will and skilled manifestation with adaptability, humility, and intuitive guidance, thereby ensuring that true mastery remains dynamic, fluid, and perpetually open to new possibilities. Now, we turn our attention to this crucial symbiosis, examining how the fool's principles are not merely a precursor, but an enduring, vital current within the magician's stream of power and purpose. What, then, does it mean for the magician's conscious will to be informed by the fool? It signifies a fundamental reorientation of agency, moving beyond a purely egoic, linear, or manipulative exertion of power. We are not speaking of a will that seeks to dominate or control external reality through sheer force, but rather a will that has been purified by surrender, sharpened by intuition, and expanded by an unwavering openness to the unexpected. The fool, standing at the precipice, embodies a willingness to release preconceived notions, to step into the void without a map, trusting in an unfolding that transcends individual planning. This act of trust, this profound surrender, paradoxically empowers the magician's will, transforming it from a rigid command into an aligned intention. It becomes a will that operates in harmony with deeper currents, a will that understands its place within a larger energetic and spiritual tapestry, rather than attempting to unilaterally dictate its terms. Consider the nature of, quote, 47. Without the fool's influence, manifestation can devolve into mere technical proficiency, a calculated execution of learned techniques devoid of true creative spark or spiritual resonance. It risks becoming a form of sorcery, effective perhaps in its immediate aims, but ultimately bound by its own limitations, unable to truly innovate or transcend. Yet, when skilled manifestation is infused with the fool's spirit, it transforms into a form of artistry, a dance between intention and intuition. The magician, having embraced the beginner's mind, approaches each act of creation as a novel experiment, unconstrained by past successes or failures. This adaptability, born of the fool's readiness to pivot and embrace the new, allows for a more organic, responsive, and ultimately more potent form of manifestation. We see not just the doing, but the being, a manifestation that arises from a state of profound presence and connection, rather than an anxious striving for results. The virtues of adaptability, humility, and intuitive guidance, bequeathed by the fool, serve as critical safeguards for the magician. Without them, the magician archetype in its raw, unrefined form carries inherent risks. A magician lacking humility can easily succumb to hubris, believing themselves to be the sole architect of reality, thereby severing their connection to the collective unconscious and the divine source of inspiration. This leads to an isolated, self-serving power that eventually stagnates, becoming brittle and prone to collapse under the weight of its own rigidity. Where is the true innovation when one is convinced of their own infallible methods? Where is genuine wisdom when one is unwilling to admit ignorance or embrace a new perspective? The fool's perpetual beginner's mind is the antidote to this intellectual and spiritual calcification, ensuring that the magician's mastery remains fresh, evolving, and always open to refinement. Furthermore, a magician detached from intuitive guidance, from that inner knowing cultivated through the fool's leap of faith into the unknown, risks becoming a mere technician, operating on logic and external data alone. While logic and data are invaluable tools, they are insufficient for navigating the complex, often paradoxical nature of reality and consciousness. The fool's journey cultivates a profound trust in internal guidance, in the whispers of intuition that emerge when the rational mind surrenders its absolute control. This intuitive faculty allows the magician to perceive deeper patterns, to anticipate unseen forces, and to align their actions with an intelligence far vaster than their conscious intellect. It is this intuitive compass that guides the magician not merely to what to manifest, but to how and when, ensuring that their creations are not only effective, but also aligned with a higher purpose and greater good. We might consider the magician who has foregone the journey of the fool as a sorcerer operating from a place of limited understanding, seeking to bend reality to their will through sheer technique, often for personal gain or control. Such a figure, while perhaps initially powerful, is ultimately constrained by their own egoic projections and fears. Their mastery is fragile, dependent on external validation, and susceptible to unforeseen variables because they lack the deep inner resilience and radical acceptance that the fool embodies. They build castles on sand, for they have not learned to trust the shifting tides. Conversely, the magician who has integrated the fool's wisdom becomes a true sage, a conduit for creative and transformative forces. Their power is not derived from control, but from alignment, not from rigid adherence to a plan, but from adaptable responsiveness to the ever-changing flow of existence. They understand that true mastery is not about eliminating uncertainty, but about skillfully navigating it with grace and presence. Their conscious will is not a weapon of dominance, but a finely tuned instrument of co-creation, harmonizing with the universe rather than attempting to conquer it. This synergistic relationship between the fool and the magician is not a linear progression where one simply replaces the other upon completion. Rather, it is a dynamic interplay, a cyclical dance that ensures continuous growth and refinement. The fool's initial leap into the void is indeed necessary to unlock the magician's true potential, providing the raw energy, the unconditioned space, and the willingness to engage with the unknown. Yet, even after the magician has honed their skills and manifested their intentions, they must periodically return to the fool's principles. Why? Because true mastery is never static. Any system, any technique, any body of knowledge, no matter how sophisticated, can become rigid and obsolete if it is not continually refreshed by the beginner's mind. The magician must, time and again, be willing to shed old paradigms, to question established truths, and to leap into new frontiers of understanding. This cyclical return prevents stagnation, fosters ongoing innovation, and ensures that the magician's power remains vibrant and relevant. How does this fool-magician synthesis manifest in the practicalities of our lives? We observe it in the artist who, having mastered their craft, magician, dares to break conventional rules, experiment with new forms, and embrace radical freedom in their expression, fool, leading to groundbreaking works that redefine their medium. We see it in the scientist who, after years of rigorous study and precise experimentation, magician, encounters an anomaly that challenges established theories, and rather than dismissing it, embraces the not knowing, fool, to pursue an entirely new line of inquiry, ultimately leading to a revolutionary discovery. Think of the spiritual practitioner who, having cultivated deep meditative states and profound insights, magician, still approaches each moment with an open heart, a beginner's mind, and a willingness to surrender to the present reality, however uncomfortable or unfamiliar, deepening their connection to the divine. In leadership, the fool-magician leader is one who can articulate a clear vision and strategically guide their team, magician, yet remains profoundly open to feedback, willing to admit when they don't know, and courageous enough to pivot when circumstances demand it, fool. They foster environments of psychological safety where experimentation is encouraged, and failure is seen not as an end, but as valuable data for the next courageous leap. Such leaders inspire not through authoritarian control, but through authentic presence, adaptability, and an unwavering trust in the collective potential of their team, mirroring the fool's trust in the journey itself. Ultimately, the profound wisdom that we have sought to uncover throughout this exploration lies in the understanding that, quote 50, is not merely a humble admission, but the most profound form of wisdom itself. It is this radical openness, this embrace of uncertainty, this unburdened step into the unknown that empowers the magician's conscious will. The magician's true power lies not in controlling the outcome, for that is an illusion of the ego, but in skillfully navigating the unknown, guided by the open heart, the clear intuition, and the adaptable spirit of the Fool. This is the ultimate expression of personal freedom, an authenticity that arises from living in profound alignment with the dynamic currents of existence, and a resilience born of embracing life's inherent paradoxes. The Fool, therefore, does not merely initiate the journey. The Fool perpetually renews it, ensuring that the magician's mastery is not a destination, but an eternal, exhilarating dance on the edge of possibility. Having traversed the initial exhilarating leap of the Fool and witnessed its symbiotic integration with the magician's conscious will, we now stand at the threshold of deeper mysteries. The journey of individuation, as we have established, is not a linear ascent, but a helical path, continuously circling back to foundational truths while simultaneously spiraling into new dimensions of understanding. If the Fool provides the radical openness for the journey to begin, and the magician offers the focused intention to manifest and direct energy, where does this initial momentum lead us next? What inner landscapes unfold when the ego, having taken its courageous step, and the will, having learned to direct its power, are now prepared to listen to the whispers of the soul? We turn our gaze to the archetype of the High Priestess, cardus in the Tarot's major arcana. She sits veiled between two pillars, one dark and one light, representing duality, guarding a scroll of hidden knowledge, and often accompanied by a crescent moon, a symbol of intuition and the subconscious. She is the keeper of secrets, the embodiment of inner wisdom, the gateway to the collective unconscious, and the sacred feminine principle of receptivity and introspection. Her domain is not the external world of action and manifestation, but the profound, often silent depths of the psyche and spirit. She speaks in symbols, dreams, and synchronicities, offering wisdom that transcends purely rational comprehension. To approach the High Priestess, to truly access the profound insights she offers, requires a particular disposition, one that the Fool, in its purest essence, has already cultivated. The magician, with its mastery of tools and focused intellect, might attempt to force entry, to decode the mysteries through sheer force of will and analysis. But the High Priestess does not yield to force. She reveals herself to receptivity, to patience, and to a profound respect for the unknown. This is precisely where the Fool's influence remains not merely relevant, but absolutely indispensable. Consider the Fool's beginner's mind, Shoshin. When we approach the profound, often contradictory wisdom of the High Priestess, a mind already burdened with preconceptions, rigid doctrines, or an absolute certainty of its own knowing will find itself utterly blocked. The High Priestess's truths are often paradoxical, requiring us to hold opposing ideas simultaneously, to embrace ambiguity, and to suspend judgment. The Fool's radical openness, its willingness to, quote, becomes the very key that unlocks the door to her inner sanctuary. Without this unburdened state, the hidden scroll remains unread, its symbols meaningless, its depth unfelt. Furthermore, the Fool's willingness to surrender and trust in the unknown, to take that unburdened step off the cliff, directly prepares us for the contemplative and often solitary journey into the inner realms. The High Priestess invites us to sit in silence, to listen to the subtle currents beneath the surface of conscious thought, to trust our intuition even when it defies logic. This requires a profound relinquishing of control, a letting go of the need for immediate answers or tangible proofs. How often do we rush to fill the silence, to rationalize away a gut feeling, or to dismiss a vivid dream as mere fantasy? The Fool teaches us to simply be with the unknown, to allow the unfolding without imposition, mirroring the patient receptivity required to commune with the High Priestess. Psychologically, the High Priestess represents the access point to the Jungian collective unconscious, the reservoir of archetypes, myths, and universal symbols that transcend individual experience. She guides us into the realm of dreams, active imagination, and the often uncomfortable truths of our own shadow. To engage in shadow work, for instance, requires an immense degree of courage and non-judgmental acceptance. We must be willing to look at aspects of ourselves that we have repressed or denied, to confront the quote 52 parts of our psyche. The Fool's innocent curiosity, its non-attachment to outcome, and its inherent lack of shame become crucial allies in this daunting exploration. Can we truly integrate our shadow without first embracing the radical acceptance that the Fool embodies, seeing even our perceived flaws as potential for growth rather than definitive condemnation? Moreover, the Fool's detachment from societal expectations and conventional wisdom allows us to hear the High Priestess's quiet voice more clearly. The wisdom she offers is often countercultural, challenging the prevailing narratives of success, productivity, and external validation. It is the wisdom of the inner world, which prioritizes authenticity, meaning, and spiritual resonance over superficial gains. To heed this call often means stepping away from the path society dictates, a move that requires the Fool's fundamental courage to be different, to follow an inner compass regardless of external validation. Spiritually, the High Priestess leads us into the contemplative traditions, into practices of meditation, deep listening, and the apophatic path, the understanding of ultimate reality through negation, through what it is not. Here, language fails, and the intellect reaches its limits. The Fool's comfort with the void, its willingness to stand at the edge of the known and embrace the abyss, becomes the perfect preparation for this mystical encounter. It is in this space of, quote 53, that true spiritual insight often emerges. The Fool's capacity for radical presence, for simply observing without judgment, allows us to sit with the mysteries, to allow their truths to unfold within us, rather than trying to grasp or define them with the limitations of the rational mind. The interplay, therefore, is profound. The Fool's initial leap of faith and its cultivation of a beginner's mind provide the essential mental and spiritual prerequisites for engaging with the High Priestess. Without the Fool's inherent trust and openness, the magician's focused will might build impressive structures, but they would lack soul. They would be devoid of the deep intuitive wisdom that only the High Priestess can bestow. The magician might create a path, but the Fool, informed by the High Priestess, ensures it is a path that resonates with deeper truth and purpose, rather than merely egoic ambition. This highlights the cyclical, rather than strictly linear, nature of the archetypal journey. The Fool is not an archetype we simply quote 54 and leave behind. Its energy and principles must be continuously revisited and integrated at every stage. As we delve deeper into the psyche with the High Priestess, we are called again and again to shed our assumptions, to embrace uncertainty, and to trust the subtle signals of our inner world. The Fool reminds us that wisdom is not a fixed destination, but a dynamic process of continuous unlearning and rediscovery. Are we truly listening to our inner voice, or are we allowing our conscious mind to filter and censor it based on past experiences or societal conditioning? It is the Fool who encourages us to bypass these filters, to hear the raw, unadulterated truth. The High Priestess also teaches us about the power of patience and incubation. Just as seeds lie dormant beneath the earth before sprouting, so too do profound insights often require a period of gestation in the subconscious. The Fool's radical acceptance of, quote 55, without demanding immediate results, aligns perfectly with this process. It encourages us to sit with discomfort, to allow insights to ripen naturally rather than forcing premature conclusions. This quality is crucial in an impatient world that demands instant gratification and immediate answers. The Fool, in partnership with the High Priestess, offers a potent antidote, fostering a deep respect for the organic unfolding of wisdom. In essence, the Fool's journey prepares us not just for external action, but for profound internal exploration. It cultivates the humility and receptivity necessary to engage with the sacred feminine principle of intuition and hidden knowledge, as personified by the High Priestess. This is not a passive receptivity, but an active, courageous openness, a willingness to face what lies beneath the surface, to explore the vast, uncharted territories of our own consciousness. The Fool's initial leap into the unknown is thus echoed in the High Priestess's invitation to journey inward into the even vaster unknown of the self. What, then, is the ultimate outcome of this continuous integration of the Fool's spirit with the wisdom of the High Priestess? It is the cultivation of a deeply intuitive, resilient, and authentic self. It is the ability to navigate life's complexities not merely through logic or brute force, but with a profound inner knowing, a compass guided by the whispers of the soul. We learn to trust our instincts, to honor our dreams, and to recognize the subtle synchronicities that guide our path. This integrated wisdom allows us to make choices that are not only effective, but also deeply aligned with our true purpose, fostering a sense of inner peace and profound connection. The Fool, standing at the precipice, gazing skyward, does not merely take a physical step into the void. It initiates an odyssey into the very fabric of existence, both external and internal. Its initial act of radical openness sets the stage for the magician's conscious creation, and, subsequently, for the High Priestess's unveiling of the profound, often unutterable truths dwelling within. This ongoing dance between daring action, focused intention, and profound introspection ensures that our journey of individuation remains vibrant, authentic, and eternally connected to the wellspring of wisdom that lies within and beyond us. The willingness to embrace the unknown, to trust the unfolding, and to maintain a beginner's heart. These are the enduring gifts of the Fool, continuously illuminating the path forward, especially into the sacred, silent depths where true wisdom resides.